We are currently recording on the DJI Osmo Pocket. This camera was released at the tail end of 2018, and at the time, I was kind of hard on it because it had some flaws, which made it really hard for me to recommend this camera to other online content creators. However, fast forward 5 months and we now have a few firmware updates and a few key accessories now available that might make this a great camera now. So is it? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. The DJI Osmo Pocket is a weird beast. It's a tiny little camera capable of recording in up to 4K 60 frames per second, has a built-in mechanical gimbal, also has a front-facing screen for monitoring, and it can straight up easily fit in your pocket. So today let's consider each of my previous positives and negatives and how DJI and a few accessory manufacturers saving their bacon were able to turn this product around. First up, let's talk about the autofocus, which is weird to need to talk about on a tiny camera like this. Like, why would you want something with a small sensor and not packing a huge amount of processing power to have something like depth of field or continuous autofocus? Those are not necessarily things that go together well. When you first came out, you wouldn't, because it used to have a heck of a time keeping focus. And while continuous autofocus still isn't perfect, it is vastly better than at release. You now also have access to autofocus single mode straight from the camera screen itself, so you can hold it up, tap on what you want to focus on, give it a second, and it's good to go. This doesn't work as well for faces or vlogging, but like I mentioned, the AFC combined with the Osmo Pocket's face tracking is doing so much better. I would say it's actually usable now, whereas when it originally came out, it was not usable. Something that I originally liked, and thankfully is still going strong, is the very respectable indoor image quality. It's really hard for tiny sensors like this with fixed apertures that are not like crazy wide open to get decent image quality indoors, but the Osmo Pocket holds the noise in the image to respectable levels. It's not going to give the same quality as a bigger sensored camera, but it's way better than I expected, and I'm glad to see that it continues to do good things. Continuing on with things that I liked that keep on doing well is the ease of use. The biggest selling point of the Osmo Pocket is that in a few seconds, you can pull this out of your pocket or camera bag, turn it on, and in seconds you have a fully stabilized rig ready to go, weighing darn near nothing. That boot up time is still incredible. Though I will say another problem I had with the Pocket on initial release was you needed to plug it into a phone to access all of the manual controls, and that's just not something that I'm interested in. I bought this camera to be a tiny little all-in-one package, not to have it attached to my phone the whole time. At that point, I might as well just buy a cell phone gimbal and just carry around that gimbal and use my phone's camera instead of having a separate dedicated video camera. But with the new firmware, you do have access to all of the pro exposure and video options right from the built-in menu system. It's not the easiest to navigate through, and you have to build up some muscle memory to know where all the menu settings are, but this actually makes it, again, usable. You can manually control your shutter and ISO, you can change your frame rates and resolutions, and you can even show it in a 16:9 aspect ratio instead of the full square box. I mean, you will lose a little bit of the screen real estate, but you will know what the finished product is going to look like, and for me, that's far more important. We'll come back to the first-party features of the Osmo Pocket usability in a second, but I want to mention this little cage that I bought on Amazon. Polar Pro is a company that makes a lot of ND filters, drone accessories, and other assorted awesome stuff, but this is the first time they've released a product that's actually changed the way that I use the original camera. This cage is genius. I can't overstress enough how amazing this thing is. You can very easily slide your pocket right into the cage, lock it securely in place, and this is the most amazing part, it gives you 2/4-inch tripod mounting options on the bottom and on the side. Oh my goodness, the absolute worst part about the Osmo Pocket is when you purchase the standard version, there is absolutely no way to mount it to anything straight in the box, which again, basically renders it useless for anything other than hand holding. Like, if you want to do more than that straight out of the box, you can't do it. Combine that with its really tight field of view, holding it out also makes it tough as a vlogging camera. But with these two mounting options, you can attach it to a small tripod like my Manfrotto Pixie that I use all the time, and it gives you the ability to move it far enough away to have a decently wide angle shot. In vlogging, generally the least important part of the video is your face. I mean, don't get me wrong, some faces are awesome, but it's more about what your face is doing or what cool place it's in, so wider is generally better. That does kind of lead itself into a few other accessories that are now available that weren't during the initial launch that kind of, again, change how the Osmo Pocket really works. Two of the big ones obviously being the audio adapter and the wireless module. Now, I personally don't have either of those, so I can't really speak to them, but just having them available now makes it easier for me to be able to recommend this camera. Those two accessories unlock a lot of potential out of the camera. I will say, I don't really like how the audio adapter sticks out of the camera's body. It plugs into the USB-C down here, and this would absolutely get in the way of my tripod. They're connected through the Polar Pro cage thingy. I mean, that leaves us right where we started out, so I probably won't be using that. I still record all of my audio off camera, and that works surprisingly well for me. I use the Zoom H1n all the time. It just does great audio, so yeah. But right up with there with the Polar Pro cage accessory though, is the manual Squirrel wheel. I mean, this is darn near required to get the full experience. It is pricey, which will go towards the final recommendation at the end of the video, but it gives you very fine control over the camera that you can't get otherwise unless you plug the Osmo Pocket into your phone. I mean, look, it just gives you some very nice control over the camera, and it gives you horizontal control, which you just straight up don't get from the camera. I mean, it really unlocks the potential of this camera. So having the ability to keep the package small, but giving you this level of control over the gimbal and the camera, I mean, like I said, it's almost required. Another cool part of this little accessory is the ability to rotate into selfie mode with one button press, which for us overly caffeinated people is far easier to pull off than a three-time press. I mean, I screw that up all the time. Something that hasn't been fixed, well, because it's impossible to fix it with the originally released hardware though, is the non-removable battery. This is not as big of a deal as I thought it was in the beginning. I originally thought this would be a much bigger problem for me, but the Osmo Pocket has some fantastic battery life. I've yet to run the battery fully out, and that's using this for full days of recording at both CES and NAB 2019. I've used this thing for full days of recording, and I've still never run out. I do wish it had a removable battery, but practically speaking, it's not as problematic as I originally thought. But let's hop outside real quick to put this in action and just show you what you can do with a quick vlogging test. So the real big benefit of the Osmo Pocket all of this time later is just how tiny and how powerful it is. So like right now we're doing the really quick vlogging test outside, but I find that the autofocus, the stabilization, the colors, a lot of problems I had with the camera are now fixed. Like even right now, I've got the screen in the 16:9 aspect ratio, so I can know what's actually gonna be in the frame of my shot. When it just used to be the square, that was super frustrating. And these accessories are insane. Like the scroll wheel that I've got on it right now is one of the, you already heard me talk about how awesome it is. Like the vlogging capabilities, the overall capabilities of the Osmo Pocket are now finally realized. And that's what I want you to take away as we do this really quick vlogging test outside, as I'm just kind of like walking around my backyard after I'm now back from NAB, where I got back at 1 o'clock this morning, and I'm ready to go to bed. Even though this is coming out on Friday, I got back at 1 o'clock this morning as of the recording of this video. But yeah, it's such a tiny, incredibly powerful package. I now have no problems recommending this if you can afford it. And that's what we'll talk about here. Next, you got to add all this stuff up, right? It's not a zero-sum game. So back to the video. Ooh, and we're back. Like I mentioned outside, all of this is great and all, but to get where it's a functional piece of kit, you really need a few of those key accessories, those being the cage and the scroll wheel, which add another roughly $100 to the package, ending up with a total of around 450 bucks. That's not cheap. And for the average content producer, if you're starting out in YouTube or other online spheres, I would still rather you invested in an interchangeable lens system than the Osmo Pocket, as they are a far more versatile platform to build your system around. However, if you were like me and already have plenty of those darn cameras, and maybe you're like me and you're getting older and you're sick of carrying around a lot of junk, or you just have money to spend and you want a super simple camera that does a lot of the work for you, then absolutely get the Osmo Pocket. I feel that it's finally at a place where I can wholeheartedly recommend it and feel like you could absolutely get some great footage out of it. Thanks for watching.